Breaking news, law enforcement sources telling CBS News' Bob Orr that Adam Lanza chose Sandy Hook Elementary School because he wanted to maximize the death toll, because they say he saw himself as being in competition with another mass murderer. Joining us on the phone right now, Northeastern University criminologist James Allen Fox and Jack Levin. They're co-authors of Extreme Killing, Understanding Serial and Mass Murder. Gentlemen, thanks very much for coming in. James Fox, first to you. Do these details about what he was doing with his time, who he idolized, surprise you at all, or are they fairly typical for individuals like Adam Lanza?
No, this doesn't surprise me at all. When the question was raised, why did he go to that school, the clear answer always was that he knew when he got there that there'd be a lot of victims under his gun. And he could hurt society in a most profound way. Where else could he go where there were so many people would be congregated? And as far as his admiring another mass murderer, that's one of the problems when we constantly talk about records. It's the largest, it's the biggest, it's the worst. What that does is it challenges other people to try to break the record. After all, why do we keep records? Records are there to be broken. I think we should downplay that aspect of shootings.
Fair point. Jack Levin, that Anders Breivik connection, if you will, you say the copycat factor doesn't necessarily lead someone to kill, but it can suggest the timing and the method. Explain.
It determines, for example, the type of weapon that is used. If one killer uses a semi-automatic rifle, the next one may use a semi-automatic rifle. You know, Breivik himself was inspired by Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. And the Columbine Massacre in 1999 inspired a number of school shootings, not only in the United States, but also in Canada, Finland, and Germany. So, you know, we can talk about the copycat factor, and it does contribute. But the causal factor for Adam Lanza was probably the same causal factor we find in most school shootings. He was bullied severely, brutally bullied when he was in elementary school at Sandy Hook. That is a much more important causal factor than the copycat influence.
But let me add this, well, in terms of how we talk about and how we cover these kinds of crimes, there's a big distinction between shedding light on a crime versus the spotlight on a criminal. All the publicity about Sandy Hook, it's fine. We want to know what happened and why it happened. But we sometimes cross that line when we focus so much on the perpetrator, making him larger than life and making him a hero for a small group of like-minded people out there who would like to follow in his bloody footsteps.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that we did reach out to the Connecticut State Police Lieutenant Paul Vance, who is telling us this on the record on the CBS News report tonight on this connection, alleged connection with Norway. All of it is speculation, Lieutenant Vance says. There's no basis to the CBS story. We have not established a motive. It's inaccurate. I talked with CBS, told them we are dealing with a deceased shooter and trying to rebuild history. The CBS story is not accurate whatsoever. That's what he's saying on the record. He does say they're investigating all sorts of suggestions. They're looking at all sorts of potential motives right now. Is it possible, James Fox, that absorbing all this information, absorbing information about someone like Breivik, for example, might actually lead someone to leave those fantasies in the realm of fantasy rather than act on them?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. By learning everything we can about him, would it satisfy someone? I doubt it.
In other words, if someone was really obsessed with Breivik and had a lot of fantasies, would he necessarily or she necessarily act out those fantasies and start killing people?
Well, all the other characters would have to be there. If someone is satisfied with their life, if they're mentally healthy and things are going well, sure, they could be fascinated with a mass murderer, but they're not going to follow in that person's footsteps. It would require someone who's isolated, angry, frustrated, and wants to wreak havoc on the world. If he starts being fascinated with a mass murder that's highlighted in the news, then he might indeed use this as a precipitating event. So, you know, we can't. Publicity does not make someone into a mass murderer.
Another killer infamous killer to set off this killer. There have been school shooters who were inspired by Shakespeare, by short story by Stephen King, just about anything, a motion picture. And Jamie is right. It's not the attention that we give these killers. It's the excessive attention. And what we should stop doing is making celebrities out of these monsters. They don't deserve it, but it's what they crave. They want the attention of the world on them. They want to be in the spotlight, and that's one thing we shouldn't do.
And the spotlight also adds insult to injury when it comes to the victims and their families.
Yeah, I think a lot of people totally agree with both of you guys. Jack Levin, James Allen, Fox, thanks very much to both of you for joining us. As always, for more on the story, go to CNN.com. Also tonight, just days ago, she